Good morning, YouTube. I never think to pick you up until it's like my bowl's about done, and it's like, oh man, I should have been YouTubing. In the summers, in the young days when I was younger, I used to say, oh boy, I used to be tubing. Now I just say YouTubing. I think it was more fun when I was tubing. Spending a lot more energy. It was one of my BJs. I think I was smoking it last video when I shot one. This is not the camera angle, folks. This pipe is a humongous pipe. In case you can't tell it, see, it's really big. Really big egg. I always like to think of it as a soft-boiled egg, you know, with all the little soldiers, toast soldiers and stuff. But see how that top is done? Doesn't it look like, you know, someone had a boiled egg on a stand and they took off the top? At least that's what it's always looked like to me. And that's why I bought it. I also was smoking a really lightweight tobacco back then. I can't think of what it was, but it was just like probably just a straight Virginia. No casing or anything. And it was just so lightweight, so easy to smoke, so quick to keep that nicotine going into you that I think that's exactly what I bought this pipe for. As a matter of fact, I know that's what I bought this pipe for. I think it's actually quite ugly. It's beautiful in its own way, you know. The beautiful little stem on there. And you can tell I haven't cleaned it for a while. And then, the top of my bowl is very scorched, as you'll notice. And got quite a buildup of cake around it. So that's one of the reasons I really like this pipe, is because of the wonderful cake in it. We were talking about cake, or we weren't talking about cake. I was going to talk about cake, and then we changed subject again, because I always get off the subject, especially when I'm smoking and drinking coffee. So, you know, I do tend to get off focus. But anyway, so I was going to talk about cake. What I was talking about yesterday, or the other day when I was talking about it, was how when you are trying to form cake in your bowl, sometimes I've got friends that don't like to smoke a new pipe. They don't like to break in a pipe. So we have learned over the years, and we're talking about lots of years, you know, because even in the old days we could do it. You can load up a bowl and light it up, and you can stick that, you can stick your stem out the window, and as you're moving along, or if the wind is blowing good enough, but usually as you're moving along, that will just go ahead and smoke your pipe for you. And you can smoke 2 or 3 bowls in a couple hours of driving around in this pipe without ever it touching your lips. Because that's how we used to build up a decent cake in some of those guys' bowls that didn't like to smoke a new pipe when you put a little cake down. I have a story about cake. I have a story about everything, don't I? I know some of you have heard all my old stories, so I'm just going to start repeating them again, because I only have so many stories, you know, and I've been on YouTube for a long time, so if you haven't heard my stories before, here we go. So the story about cake is, now, those of you who don't know, all right, we'll start with how I first started smoking. My dad smoked. My dad sowed briar. My mother's family grew tobacco. My dad's family sowed briar. It was a company that went all over the world, traveled all over the world, and we got to travel with him. And he would buy briar, or briar futures. And sometimes that would involve us staying somewhere. I loved it when we stayed in Greece. And, you know, we stayed some really neat places. But by the same token, we stayed on a lot of crappy little farms. But we didn't know they were crappy little farms. We were little kids, and we had a great time with all their kids, you know. So no language barriers when you're children, in case you haven't figured that one out. There is nothing that you can't, as a kid, you can communicate to another kid, regardless of who you are, regardless of what country you're in or anything like that. You will find 2 children of totally different cultures. You put them together, and eventually, within very little time, they will form a relationship that will allow them to speak with each other in a language that they will come up with between the 2 of them. And the reason I say that is because after traveling so many times as children, and we didn't know we weren't speaking their language, you know, none of us did. It was kind of funny. Although my little sister, I have to admit, my little sisters I got two really amazing sisters, by the way, but my little sister could pick up a language just like that. I mean, and she was little and cute, and she was amazing. And my older sister is musically inclined, very musically inclined, and so she could pick up any instrument and play it. So even as a child, um, she loved to play on the instruments, and so wherever we were at, she would pick up anything and make it into an instrument, or it was an instrument and she would play it. So when you got sisters like that with you, you have a pretty good childhood. No one's ever strangers. So about building cake and the story about cake. I had been hanging out with the old boys a long time. I was only like 6 or 7, I think, at the time. Maybe a little older, but not much older. And I was hanging out with my dad and his friends out on the patio over the house we were at. And, I'm out there with my little pipe and loading tobacco into it. I'm not allowed to smoke, but, I sit out there with the guys and smoke my pipe too. And I had a little Medica. I've had lots of little Medicas, but so I was sitting out there, loading my pipe with the guys and sitting around. I'm a kid. I have no idea what they're talking about most of the time, but they aren't afraid to talk around me because they've been doing it for years, and they knew that this was how it was, and they started talking about cake, and I'm waiting on the cake. Oh boy, we're gonna get cake, and I keep waiting on the cake, and I keep waiting on the cake, and they never, the guys are talking about cake, but there's no cake, and somebody was saying, yeah, this kind of, this cake built up in the pipe and stuff, and I'm thinking, well, why would they put cake in the pipe? But I didn't care. I was going to get cake. That was all I was concerned about. I was very disappointed to find out that there was no cake. There was pie, so I guess that's okay, but I was really disappointed to find out that it was cake in the pipe and not cake in the mouth. I wanted cake. Which is true. I'm a cake person over a pie person, but that's just, everybody has their own preference. So I remember waiting on that cake and there being no cake. So I don't talk about cake very often around little kids because they're going to expect a cake. And if you are going to talk about cake with some of your friends around there, you ought to at least have a Twinkie in your pocket to give the kid. Because that's a big disappointment to hear about cake for a whole day and then get none. I had a great childhood. So here in Parkville, it's very quiet in the mornings, and you can hear the planes because we're close to the airport, but it's just beautiful. And then next door, I don't think you guys can hear it, but there's the gurgling of their little pond and stuff over there, and the roar you hear in the background is my neighbor's swimming pool over there. Everything's getting dead and dying. My banyan tree from Edison's garden in Florida, I have to take it in every year. Well, there's two actually. I have to take them in because I cannot take the cold here in Kansas. And those trees are probably 17 to 20 years old, and they're not any bigger than that. So they don't do well in Kansas, but I'm just not ready to let them go. I should just go ahead and give them up and either take them back down there and plant them, or take them to Texas and plant them. I don't know. Hey, would you guys let me plant my banyan trees in Texas? They're pretty when they're not yellow and dying like mine are. They have a really neat root system that's kind of neat. Most of the roots out of the ground, and that's kind of a neat looking, looks like a walking plant is what I used to call them when I was a kid. So, well, I really didn't have much to talk about this morning. I just wanted to finish up my conversation from before when I started talking about cake and never finished the subject. Oh, as for that song that us girls sang, I never could remember what one it was. So, at that karaoke club, let's see, what else is there? I'm always kind of envious of those people that have so much to talk about, like Skip and Stephanie. I mean, they get on YouTube and have people calling in and live chats and all that kind of stuff. And I just don't think I could keep a conversation going long enough for someone to call in and still be interested, or I probably wouldn't still be on the same subject. That's my problem. I float around too much on my subjects and things. Not that I'm complaining. I mean, I don't mind. I'm used to being off focus. Well, my pipe's out. It's hard to light this damn thing one-handed and hold you too. So, um, happy, happy, joy, joy. It's beautiful weather. If you are not outside right now, you better take advantage of it. We're coming into fall so fast. What happened to spring? And then all of a sudden, summer's gone. You know, I am so tired of being in the house and tied up and not seeing my friends. You know, we got the perfect yard now. We have tons of croquet sets and lawn bowling games and all this kind of stuff. We got the perfect yard for it. And well, for one thing, since we've moved, or even before we moved with Kevin's broken foot and then having it partially removed, I haven't had any help. I mean, I moved into this house by myself with, the 3 men in a truck took and brought over the big stuff, some of it, but not a lot of it. You know, a big truckload, but we had a big house. And so the rest I have been transferring out of storage, and my garage used a 2-car garage, and you can't put nothing in it. It's so full that it's just impossible. But anyway, happy, happy, joy, joy. You know I'm watching you.